All right, everybody, we are back again for this next edition of the Rebel Yell Sports Podcast on this November 13th, 2014. And welcome to our 2014-2015 basketball preview Rebel Yell Sports Podcast. How you guys doing?
Good. Very good.
Really
Excited to
talk excited for some basketball, you know?
Talk about something that's not depressing.
I know, right? Well, soccer hasn't been that depressing.
It's true.
So I mean,
we get two positive things to talk about in one show.
I know, we're erasing all the negative things today.
Three.
There you go. I forgot about that. We got 3 things to talk about today. So, thanks for joining us, guys. As you can notice, once again, Jesse Granger is not here with us because his other job hates him, pretty much, so to speak.
Duty calls.
Duty calls. But thanks for joining us, guys. I'm the sports editor, Danny Webster, joined by senior staff writers Jordan Aguilar and Randy Fingers today to give you all the goods on basketball and men's soccer. We need to talk about men's soccer before we do anything else today because your 2014 WAC regular season conference champions are your UNLV men's soccer team. And we do need to talk about some good things, but we do have some breaking news that you just whipped out a piece of paper. So
this is just some notes. I talked to Coach Ryerson. I tweeted this out yesterday. On Monday with some vagueness. So I called Coach Ryerson this morning to clear it up. Rodrigo Fuentes, who's a junior midfielder, he is tied for second on the team in scoring with Danny Musovsky, in goals, I should say. I'm sorry. He's out for the entire WAC tournament, and if the Rebels were to make the NCAA tournament, possibly out for that, with a broken 5th metatarsal on his right foot, which is the pinky toe on the right foot. He broke it against Grand Canyon University. A player came down on his foot. He had already had a bone bruise there, Ryerson said. So the pressure from the kick from the Grand Canyon player just broke his top of his pinky toe. He is, like I said, tied for second in scoring. And also, some more news, Sal Bernal, who is the captain of the team, he is not expected to play Friday with a knee injury. As you remember, Ryerson held him out for 2 games because he had a little bit of an ankle problem, and he thought that teams were going after him just purposely to hurt him. Well, in the Houston Baptist game, toward the end of the game, he was someone slide tackled him from behind as he was running away. Slide tackled him, wrapped his knee up under him. He had a big bandage on it at practice on Monday, and he did some light jogging, some light running. Ryerson said he did not play with the ball at all. He didn't kick, didn't do anything like that. Ryerson said that the MLS has been contacting Bernal, and they're sending scouts out to the games this weekend, the WAC tournament. And Ryerson's quote to me was he would have, quote, a greater opportunity, end quote, to shine on Sunday rather than Friday. He wouldn't specifically say Sal is out, but I would like to say it's greater than 50% that Sal Bernal and Rodrigo Fuentes will not play Friday. That's huge because that's just about a third of the Rebels' offense for the entire season. That's gone. Luckily, UNLV's deep. They do have scoring from Kyle Mellies, who's a backline player, but he does find opportunity. They still have the freshman Musovsky, who's, like I said, tied for second on the team in goals. Jason Kambanza, Julian Dragomir, these guys have all produced and helped the Rebels' offense this year. But I tell you what, I talked to Ryan Harding about it on Monday, and he said that he's ready for it. I mean, he really hasn't had to do much defensively this year, if you think about it. I mean, he has 9 shutouts this season. Yeah. He's 1 shy of tying the record in a single season. But a lot of that isn't really saves for him per se. It's more of just the back line being ferocious and playing well. But he said he's ready for this weekend, if need be, that he'll step up. But the Rebels do have a deep team. Ryerson said he really isn't worried about their depth, about them losing the 2 main scorers from their team, because he's very confident in the team's depth. So again, Rodrigo Fuentes out this for the whole tournament, and Salvador Bernal, the captain, out this Friday.
And that's huge because we talked about before we went on the air. The UNLV plays the winner of UMKC and San Jose State, I believe, and They already lost to UMKC at home, I believe.
And they tied with San Jose State at home, double overtime.
So, I mean, you kind of need Bernal in there, but I mean, I can understand holding him out for precautionary measures. But I mean, that's a huge risk knowing that these teams have played pretty well against UNLV.
Yeah, and just to give you an idea of how rough the game was against GCU, Ryerson's been saying this forever, that teams target their players because their players are smaller but they're quicker, so bigger teams will try to rough them up. In the first half against Grand Canyon, fouls were Grand Canyon 9, Grand Canyon 9, UNLV 2. In the second half, 18-8. So these teams are really trying to go after UNLV because they're small and they're quicker. And frankly, Rich Ryerson's tired of it. I asked him point blank, I said, have you formally made a complaint to the Western Athletic Conference? And he said no. So I don't know, if I was a coach, I would assume that you would want to go and talk to these guys and be like, listen, my players are literally Bernal got slide tackled running away from behind, which caused him to have this knee injury. Fuentes broke his foot. There's so many things going on with this team because they're little, they're smaller, they're quicker. So, it's going to be interesting, but he has not formally filed a complaint to the Western Athletic Conference. I asked him point blank.
So heading into this tournament, what's their outlook on the NCAA tournament?
So they don't expect that they can make the NCAA tournament without winning the Western Athletic Conference. Simply, their RPI is not strong enough. They're number 57 in the RPI as of last week, and their losses don't look like good losses anymore. Gonzaga's loss, their RPI is very bad. UC Irvine, the number 14 in the country when they beat the Rebels, has dropped out of the top 25. So it doesn't look like a good loss anymore at home. Simply put, like I said, they cannot make an at-large berth without winning the Western Athletic Conference. Now, I talked to Bernal. I talked to Sal on Monday, and I said, listen, if Fuentes is out and you're out, who do you rely on? What's going to happen here? He goes, I'm not worried about it. He goes, from the beginning of the season, we talked about we wanted to win the WAC postseason tournament. He goes, we knew we were going to be regular season champions, but we want to win the tournament. I asked him, I go, are you guys satisfied with this regular season win? And he goes, no, hell no, we're not. So I think that they're fired up. I think that they know, and they've known as of last week that they were going to be without Sal and Rodrigo. So I think they're ready for it. But I think that they definitely have to win the tournament, and they're going to have to go through UMKC, San Jose State winner, obviously, and then Seattle, Bakersfield, who always plays them tough, or Air Force. So it's not going to be easy.
Actually, not Air Force. Actually, Utah Valley is playing Bakersfield, and the winner of that plays Seattle. Air Force actually isn't in.
Oh, yeah, that's news to me. Well, then either Bakersfield or either way, Utah Valley's a big team. They struggle with physical. Bakersfield, they always play poorly, or play evenly against, I should say. Mm-hmm. And Seattle's on home turf. Seattle will be looking for revenge because UNLV went up there earlier and beat the hell out of them. So it's going to be tough either way. They have to get past UMKC or San Jose State first.
Yeah, Seattle's the number 2 seed in the WAC tournament, and UNLV plays their first game on Friday at 4:30. They play the winner of UMKC in San Jose State without Rodrigo Fuentes or Sal Bernal. That's huge.
It's tough.
And I think we were talking about this earlier in the year. We're talking about their complacency. Some games they took games off. Now's the time you can't use any complacency.
Yeah.
You got to use everybody. And now that your 2 leading scorers are not going to play, one of them won't play for the entire tournament. Kind of need somebody to step up.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. The complacency thing is key because this is a team that just was in ruins 5 years ago. They didn't even know if they were going to have a program, and now they're conference champions for the first time in 27 years. They can say all they want that that's not their goal, but in some of their minds, they've accomplished more than they ever thought they'd accomplish at UNLV. So you gotta think that complacency has set in. Ryerson said that's not the case. He said they're gonna be fired up. He's gonna have them fired up. All we can do is wait and watch and see.
Yeah.
So, and that's like you said, tomorrow at 4:30, Friday at 4:30.
Friday at 4:30, and then I guess the winner of the semifinal matches get a day off, and then championship out.
That's the good thing. They get the winner of UMKC San Jose State less than 24 hours after those 2 teams play. They play on Thursday today. Then they play the winner. UNLV plays the winner of that tomorrow. Then they get another day's rest to play the winner of Seattle versus Bakersfield or Utah Valley.
Yeah.
So, they do get some rest in between. This extra rest for Sal. Ryerson said he's going to run around and practice. They traveled today, but they're also practicing today and tomorrow. He'll get some play with some jogging, light jogging in, and play with the soccer ball today and tomorrow. So I guess we'll see.
All right. Well, that is huge news coming out from men's soccer. Again, Rodrigo Fuentes and Sal Bernal not playing in the first semifinal match Sal Bernal, if UNLV gets to the championship game, should be playing against the winner of Seattle and whoever wins out of Utah Valley and Bakersfield on Sunday at 1 o'clock in Seattle. So a road game for the championship.
Yeah.
Possibly. All right, guys, let's do it. Basketball time. It's time
Love
to
it.
preview your 2014-2015 UNLV basketball teams. Basketball season starts officially tomorrow at home at the Thomas Mack with a doubleheader, starting with the Lady Rebels at 4 o'clock against Texas A&M Corpus Christi, and then followed up with the Runnin' Rebels against Morehead State, the home of Kenneth Fareed.
The dreadlock.
And he's not there anymore. They could probably wish the Morehead State had him. But let's go ahead and start with men's basketball, guys. Obviously, this is a highly anticipated season. We've been waiting since, I believe, March for this season to finally come to fruition. It all started back 2 years ago after UNLV was eliminated in the tournament. Dwayne Morgan came in later that fall. Good luck, Okanobo. And then finally in the spring, Rashad Vaughn. This is the season people have been waiting for. This is the recruiting class people have been waiting for. And now you're probably going to see all three of them play at a high role this year, a large role this year. So, outlook on this men's basketball team. Went 20-13 last year, missed the postseason completely, did not want to participate in the NIT, did not make the NCAA tournament. So, young team, very young team, but really high expectations.
High ceiling.
Very high ceiling too. Yes. So you were at the game against Florida National. What did you see from that game?
Okay, everything I take from the Florida National game,
You throw it out.
I completely crumble it up and I throw it out
Yeah.
because that team was so excited to play UNLV. Like, you don't understand. They were. Kendall Smith made a dive for the ball to save the ball from going out of bounds onto the scores table. It wasn't like he was like all in the stands or anything. And instead of keeping play going, a Florida National guy ran over and helped him up off the scores table. I mean, they were like, I'm telling you, they were so excited to be there, to just be in that present. They were getting blown out by 50, and every time they made a shot, the coach was still on the sideline cheering, which you have to do.
Yeah.
You're second year program, but this is what UNLV should have done. So there's nothing that I take away from that game where I'm like, oh man, this is going to be a good season. I wrote about it in my column. Christian Wood, 24 points and 15 rebounds, whatever he had, 4 blocks. He was playing against. It was almost like Wilt Chamberlain back in the '60s, where you had a 7-foot center and 6'3" centers guarding him. The tallest guy in Florida National was 6'7". It was a mismatch. It wasn't even meant, And then you saw that in the secret scrimmage they had with UCLA on Saturday, where they got beat by 41 points, 101-60. It's going to happen. That game against Florida National was completely thrown out the window. I do think, however, that the talent is there. Rashad Vaughn, they played against a junior varsity team, but you could just tell he felt comfortable on the floor. He was so much better than everybody else, and it wasn't even close. Cody Doolin didn't shoot the ball that much, but he looked like he was trying to run the offense. The whole team looked good. Morehead State's going to be a tough test. People are sleeping on Morehead State. Yeah, they don't have Kenneth Fareed anymore, but this is a good, solid basketball team. They got a guy named Angelo Warner, 6'2", 195. He's their leading scorer from a year ago, and he's picked to be second team All-Ohio Valley Conference. I think this will be Rashad Vaughn's first test. Even though Rashad's bigger than him, I don't think they're going to put Cody Doolin on him. They may start out that way, but I think Rashad's going to guard him. And I think this is going to be a good test for Rashad, just to see where he is. This guy's a senior. Rashad may have so much more talent than him, but Warner has knowledge and wisdom and experience on Rashad. So I think that's going to be a good matchup for Rashad, first game of the year.
What did you guys think of? Sorry, what were you going to say? I was going to say, what did you guys think of Jelon Kendrick in the starting small forward?
I like it. Go ahead. You want to say something
No,
first?
I think having these 3 freshmen on the floor at the same time, although it is exciting, could cause when things go bad, things could go really bad. And I think Jelon has proven he can play when he has confidence in his shot, and he's athletic, he's long. I like him in that spot starting. And what's exciting is you get Dwayne Morgan off the bench, a guy like him. I mean, there should be no loss in production. So I like the move with Jelon.
Yeah, me too. Jelon's so much more diverse than Dwayne Morgan when it comes to offense. Jelon can put the ball on the floor. He can make moves. He can find his shot, his own shot. Morgan, his jumper's not quite there yet. He's still a little raw. I mean, he's a good player. He's going to play bigger than he really is. He's a high energy guy. But like Jordan said, I really like having two seniors on the floor to start the game with Cody Doolin and Cody Doolin and Jelon Kendrick, along with Chris Wood, Goodluck, and Rashad Vaughn. Our front court's going to be nice. We have a lot of size. They're toothpicks, but they have a lot of size. So I like that. I like that Jelon gets the nod over Dwayne Morgan. I don't necessarily think Morgan has a problem coming off the bench.
Yeah, I mean, when you kind of think about it, though, when he was brought here, a lot of people were like, "Oh, he is the piece that this team is missing: an athletic three that can run the floor, that can shoot." So I guess having that energy off the bench could make a lot of sense. But I mean, I think it also depends on. This probably isn't going to be Jelon Kendrick's job for long if he can struggle. But I mean, like you said, we take the Florida National game with a grain of salt because it was against 5'10" small
junior
forwards.
varsity team.
Yeah.
But let me tell you this though, as far as you saying messing up offensively won't be his job for long. He had so much more confidence on the court, and he played with so much more weight off of his shoulders because of Bryce Dejean-Jones not being there. And like I said, I know it's a junior varsity team, but he looked like he could play naturally because obviously him and Bryce was the reason that all this turmoil was happening in the locker room. They butted heads. They didn't see eye to eye. Whether that had to do with Bryce leaving or not is a different story, a different topic. But those two did not get along. And you could see that on the court. Granted, they're playing a smaller team, but you could just see Jelon was so much more fluid. He had more confidence. He was driving, making plays, finding his shot. Whereas last year, it looked like he was. I mean, obviously his offense wasn't there last year, but he looked so afraid to even do anything. So I think he'll keep that spot for pretty much the remainder of the season, unless they go against a team where they need more size, or it's a team, an inferior team, like say they play. Portland or St. Catherine. You might throw the freshman in the starting lineup just to see what it looks like with the three freshmen. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I think that's Jelon's job for the season. I really do.
I agree with you on that, though. I think when you look at Jelon, he just didn't look comfortable last year. And I guess that was just based on there are too many dominant ball handlers in the offense last year, and you really didn't know who you wanted to take the shot. You really didn't know who you wanted to handle the ball. I guess now you look at it and Jelon could probably play a three and not have to worry about being the primary ball handler on this team when you got two guys in the backcourt who could do that job themselves. Mm-hmm. So, next question I have, and this is one of my bigger concerns. Who after Goodluck Oginobo and Christian Wood can you rely on to play the 4 and 5? That is my biggest concern with this team. You have talent, you have length at the 4 and 5. After them, maybe Dwayne Morgan comes in and plays the 4, but then who do you have backing up Chris Wood? You're going to have to play one of them at least 40 minutes or goes really, really small.
And I think that's something that Rice is going to do a lot. And I think he's going to play small lineups a lot.
So like Morgan at center if they have?
Yeah, I think it's going to be, I'm looking at the roster right now, and like you said, you have Goodluck and you have and Chris Wood, and then the tallest guy after that is Dwayne Morgan. I tell you what, I'll be interested to see him, and this may sound crazy right now, but I would not be surprised if Jordan Cornish plays the 4 when they go small. He's 6'6", listed. He's probably more about 6'4.5", 6'5", but he is a thick country dude. Like, just when you think of like corn-fed country kids, like you think of him. Like he's just a solid guy. And his offensive game isn't great. His jumper is pretty awful right now, just being honest. But he is strong enough to contend with any power forward that this team plays. Now, okay, if they play Duke, you're not going to see him on Okafor at 6'11", okay? Or if they play somebody that has like a 6'9", 6'10" power forward, he might not be on them. That's when you're going to have to go big. But if they're if the other team is playing a small lineup, or let's say the 4 guards, the 4 is a 6'8", maybe even 6'9" guy, I think Cornish could hold his own because he's so strong and compact. On the defensive end, I think he'll be just fine.
Kind of like the Jamal Aids role before he left for BYU.
Right. He would be key right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's why the departure of Kem Birch was so big because they are
that is another thing,
so thin. down low. I mean, you've got two solid guys, but if one gets into foul trouble, you're kind of in a lot of trouble if the other team's got a big man down low.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I think he's going to have to run and play fast and play athletic, and I think they're going to have to score a lot of points this year.
Yeah,
They're
Ben
gonna-
Carter would have been helpful this year to have a little bit more size. Even though he's about 6'8", he's a strong, thick guy too. He would have been helpful to come off the bench this year.
I agree. But I think when we look at this overall outlook of the season, it comes down to the three freshmen. And pretty much, and probably the three freshmen and Cody Doolin, I think, are going to be the most looked at guys this year when you look at this team and how far they can go. And I think, and we talked about this before, having Cody Doolin as your point guard, I think, is going to prove wonders for this team. I mean, we've seen he's got great vision. He looks at the play as it's developing from the other side of the court. So I think having him be that kind of a playmaker is going to prove wonders for this team. Is that reasonable to say?
Yep.
Yeah, I think so too. He's so smart and knowledgeable about the game. He's a senior, obviously. Something else I'm interested in, and yes, his decision making is going to be probably one of the most instrumental things in this team's success. Maybe even more so than just the raw talent that the three freshmen have. I also think it's interesting that Rice is going to have such a change of pace at point guard when he wants to sub in and out. I mean, you go from Cody Doolin, who is very fundamental, mechanical, smart, knowledgeable, to Kendall Smith, who's just a raw athlete. Get up and down the court. Different change of pace. There's so many different lineups you can do with this team that's going to be very, very interesting to see, and it's going to give people matchup problems. The only thing, like we talked about earlier, is the size. We don't have a lot of it, but the lineups that Rice can put together are going to be very interesting to watch. Very interesting. But I agree, Doolin's decision making is going to be very instrumental.
I mean,
teams this year.
and I know I don't want to keep harping on that Florida National game, but watching some of the highlights, just his passing was so crisp.
Yeah.
It was so on point. He threw a lot of passes into tight windows to Chris Wood that any point guard last year would not have been able to do. I mean, he looks tailor-made for this kind of fast break, up-tempo offense.
I mean, he's not even looking to shoot the ball.
Yeah.
No, he's not.
I think he had 2 field goal attempts
Yes,
in the Florida National game. He don't care.
yeah, it's a guy who averaged 13 and 7 last year for San Francisco.
Which might benefit them down the line because you see some teams will play off of him, and if he can somehow knock down 1 or 2 big shots a game, that'll be key for them because that'll leave other guys open in the front court.
I have a question for you guys. How do you feel like this team's going to do defensively? How do you think they match up defensively with people?
I mean, they looked lost at times, even against Florida National.
I was going to say, because I saw them get backdoored by Florida National probably 4 or 5 times in the first half. That led to easy layups and dunks. And I mean, Florida, you cannot get backdoored to a team like you can't get backdoored, period, but not to a team like that.
Yeah.
And as much as Chris Wood was the rim protector and had all these blocks, I feel like you said at times, they got really lost. And I think that'll come. The cohesiveness will come with the season. But what do you think?
I think second chance opportunities are going to be big. I think when
Yes.
they're going to get beat is on the offensive boards and on the putbacks. I think if they can't protect the rim, teams beat them up inside. I think those second chances, if they miss a lot of those, they'll lose a lot of their games this year.
Because they're so long. They're not really strong. They're long. So I mean, you're going to have to win the rebounding battle that way. But
I think, speaking of long, I think this could be a perfect team to run the zone with.
Yeah.
The 2-3 zone. If Rice can somehow get them to play together well enough to run that Syracuse Boeheim 2-3 havoc zone, I think this team's tailor-made for that. Pressing, not so much, just because I remember we talked about this last year. You need a team to be on the same page when you press, or that thing is just disaster waiting to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe hold off on the press, but I think they are tailor-made to run a zone. They are so long with Morgan, Kendrick, Goodluck, Wood. Their arms stretch baseline to baseline long ways. Maybe they're really just so long. It's insane. So I think that's something that Rice could look at.
And I mean, this is kind of one of the things that we run into when talking about this team. A lot of talent, and I think last year you could say the criticism was well warranted. This year you kind of got to lean back a little bit
Because they're a freshman.
because they are freshmen, they are young. So that cohesion, I think, is going to come. I mean, they've only played one game, technically 2 games together, but one game that actually is on the schedule. It's going to take time. I mean, a lot of people look at the Cleveland Cavaliers. A lot of people harp on them because they're not getting a lot of they're not playing well.
It takes time.
And then they go out on Monday night against New Orleans and LeBron goes off for a triple-double, Kyrie scores 32, and all of a sudden everything's fine. It's going to take time. If they don't play an 82-game season, it's going to take time for this team to gel.
Problem is, the second week of the year, they're going to be in Brooklyn playing
That's another thing I want to.
They don't have time. That's the sad part.
That's another thing I want to talk about, this schedule. I mean, if you had Kem Birch and Roscoe Smith back, then maybe I can understand this schedule, and that's probably what they planned for. You're throwing 3 top 50 freshmen out into the bright lights of the Barclays Center to possibly play Duke. January 4, you go to Lawrence, Kansas to play Kansas. Not to mention you have to play San Diego State, which is in conference, and New Mexico. Well, New Mexico's probably going to struggle with Boise State, Wyoming. This conference is not a joke anymore. This conference has 5-6 teams that can possibly make the tournament this year. But this schedule is freaking rough.
I think part of the anticipation of the season was not only the roster, but was the schedule.
Yes.
Duke and Kansas and Arizona and teams like that in your schedule.
Utah.
The problem is, I
That's
think
gonna be a tough game.
Possibly Oklahoma, if anything.
I think
the way that tournament scheduled out.
I think when the schedule was set up, I think when the schedule was set up, I think it was in mind having you're going to have these young guys, but you're also going to have a Kem Birch, a Roscoe Smith, Bryce DeJon Jones when he was making shots on the team. It was going to be a good mix. Now you're kind of going with Rashad Vaughn, the freshman, as the leader, and Cody Doolin, transfer, and Jelon Kendrick and Kendall Smith. It's kind of uncertainty. It's anticipation, but it's kind of unknown.
Yeah.
And it's tough they don't get that time to really mesh because in 2 weeks they're going to be all the way on the other side of the country.
Yeah, and I was actually wrong about that because I thought the MGM Grand Showcase was a tournament. It's not really a tournament.
Yeah,
It's mainly just getting 4 teams together.
Yeah.
So Washington. So never mind. UNLV's not playing Oklahoma. Lon Kruger's not coaching against Dave Rice.
It's funny. I was on Twitter the other day, and Jeff Goodman of ESPN was doing like a Q&A with people about just the college teams, the scheduling, whatever. And I just randomly, I was like, what are your thoughts on UNLV? And he actually tweeted me back, and he was like, that's a ridiculous schedule. So, I mean, these guys, people know, and if you didn't know, now you do know, the schedule is very, very tough for any team, let alone a freshman-laden, young, raw team.
Yeah.
I mean, they got, and people aren't even talking about some games. Morehead State is a tough game. Stanford is a ridiculously tough game.
Sweet 16
Temple,
year.
Duke, we all know about Duke, but Temple
Made the Sweet 16 last year.
Duke, yeah. Temple is not a great team, but they have a lot of players back from last year's team. You'll be able to handle
And Duke
them.
got upset.
No, I'm talking about Temple.
Temple made Sweet 16 last year?
No. Temple?
I thought they did.
No, Stanford.
Yeah. Stanford made the Elite Eight.
Dayton.
Maybe I'm thinking of Dayton. I'm sorry. There were a lot of teams last year that should not have been in the Sweet 16 last year, and they made it.
Utah, Arizona, Wyoming, which is in conference, Kansas, San Diego State, Boise State. I mean, this schedule is very, very tough. So
Utah, Arizona back to back. I mean, that is brutal.
yeah, and luckily that they get to stay in Vegas for that. But it's like 3 days apart. You're playing 2 top 25 teams.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
It's amazing, the schedule. Like we said, we kind of planned it when Kem and Roscoe were still here. Now that they're gone, you got to live with the deal.
We'll see what these freshmen are all about. More specifically, Rashad Vaughn. I know everybody's excited to see his offensive game and see what he does. But I'll tell you what I'm looking forward to is Goodluck and Dwayne Morgan's defensive presence. Because Goodluck, although he took some ridiculous shots that he should never, ever, ever even think about taking in the Florida National game, but because they were up 50, he can. It's all right. He loves playing defense. That guy, him and Christian Wood were all, and like I said, they're 6'7" guys they're playing against, but they were all over the floor. And Christian Wood said after the game in the press conference, we complement each other well. I love playing alongside this guy. So I'm anxious to see how the freshmen play defense, more specifically Dwayne Morgan and Goodluck Okinobo, because we didn't see too much from Rashad. I mean, he really didn't even have to guard these guys, to be honest, because they just weren't that good. But I want to see how they play defense. I want to see how they go against Chase and Randall and Anthony Brown. All the kids from Duke, Kansas. I'm so Arizona State. I'm excited.
And by the way, before we move on, I was definitely wrong. It was not Temple. 9-22.
Yeah, that's what I was like. What are you talking about?
There were a lot of teams that should not have been that far in the NCAA tournament last year, and Dayton was one of them. But Dayton is not anywhere near close to Temple. So
Dayton will regress.
Yeah, sadly. All right, but you're playing against Arizona at home. go to Arizona State. I mean, that's insane.
The Arizona State game, I think, is very winnable. I don't think people. I think people just see Arizona State
That's
as
a
like
very
scary.
dangerous home court advantage.
Yeah,
though.
but I think it's a
That's a
winnable
very
game for
tough place to
UNLV. I
play.
really do.
That's a very
Really
tough place
do.
to play. All right, so where does the team finish? I mean, what is a reasonable expectation? Where do you see them actually finishing?
I've got them. I think. I was looking at the roster, at the schedule. I got them winning about 23 games. I can't see them winning any of these marquee games right now. I see them beating Arizona State, just because Arizona State lost a lot of people.
Yeah, the three guys that killed Arizona State last year, Baczynski, Marcel, and Carson, are all gone. They scored 70 of Arizona State's 86 points last year in the game against UNLV.
Even against Stanford,
It's the same on Goodman game. He will go off for 40.
Yeah,
even against Stanford, I think they're going to struggle.
in the new sneakers he stole from
But
somebody.
Oh,
I think they're gonna have to steal one of these games, because last year we talked about all their marquee games. Even though they didn't have a lot, they didn't win any of them, which hurt them.
yeah.
And then heading in the conference, I think San Diego State's good, but I don't think they're as good as everyone thinks they are.
They're such a good defensive team. They're not going to score 100 on you. They're not going to hang 100 points on you, but they're going to hold you to about 47.
Talk about a long team.
Yeah.
Oh,
They
my
are
Lord.
ridiculously long and athletic, and Steve Fisher is one of the more underrated coaches in the country. That guy's amazing.
Yes.
He's absolutely amazing.
I think UNLV could take one of the two from San Diego State. I think Colorado State, that'll be interesting this year. If
That's another wild card.
If Wyoming gets Larry Nance back healthy and he's playing at a high level, that'll be interesting. So I think they finish around 23, 24 wins this year. I think they do make it back to the tournament. I think it'll be a struggle at the beginning of the year. I think a lot of people are going to jump off the bandwagon, especially after that first, after they come back from Brooklyn. And not because they're bad, it's just because they're young and inexperienced, and they're still trying to create that cohesion, especially if they do play Stanford, who, like I said, went to Sweet 16, and they do happen to win. They do have to face Duke with Jaleel Okafor and Coach K and everybody, and that's a very good team. So I do think they struggle out of the gate, but I do think somewhere, especially in that stretch after Arizona State, you get St. Catherine, South Dakota, and Portland before you get up Utah and Arizona. That's a good stretch to build momentum, build up some steam before you get a tough slate. And then you get the one at Kansas. I mean, how great would that be to win in Kansas?
San Diego State did that.
But we'll see. So, yeah, I got about 23, 24 wins. I think Jelon's going to be big this year. I think Kendall Smith's going to be big this year. Not in the productivity, but more of just keeping this team together, because they are going to struggle at times, especially being so young. And being that young, they might not always know how to handle it. So, but I think it's a good year for this team. I think a lot of people are expecting them to win 30-something games. So I think with the schedule,
Hell no.
The only reason people are saying that is because they look at success.
Hey,
as
if you
freshmen.
think they're going to win 30 games,
Kill yourself.
they're in,
30
those people are in this town.
Shit.
And people are flying all the way to New York to go watch them play Duke. They don't even know if they're going to play Duke. So,
Well, here's the thing, though. If they don't beat Stanford, they might not even play Duke.
I know.
So
Yeah, Temple ain't beating Duke. Duke about to beat them by 40.
No, I'm talking about if UNLV doesn't beat Stanford.
So I'm saying, UNLV plays the loser of Duke Temple, right? If they lose to Stanford, they play the loser of Duke
Yes.
Temple.
So let's hope Duke loses to Temple. If
Yeah,
UNLV
you
loses to
don't have
Stanford.
And they need to regain
Temple
their.
gets one win on the year.
They need to regain that home court edge that they used to have. It seems like it's kind of gone away. The wins it's kind of gone out of the Thomas and Mack. And I remember when Thomas Mack used to be so intimidating for teams. Teams could come in here and not win.
It's one of the more larger stadiums in the entire country. You see, it's 18.5. It's bigger than Duke. It's bigger than Cameron Indoor.
If you win games, people will come. Last year they did not win games.
Yeah.
They didn't come.
And the Mountain West is weird. You got Fresno State. They could be good.
Fresno's, my God, this
year.
conference is so deep, it's
Yeah.
insane.
And then they finished here with San Jose State, so they should win that game.
All right, so 23-24 wins. Randy, what do you think?
I'm a little south of your win total. I have them going 22-9. I debated a few games, but I have them going 22-9, including 13-5 in conference.
That's good for about 2 or 3.
Yeah, I have them losing both, getting swept by Wyoming, but splitting with San Diego State, Boise State, and I have them losing at Colorado State for the 5th win. Colorado State's going to be a very good team this year. I know Jesse hates Colorado State. They're going to be a good team.
Yes.
Eustace, I previously was at Southern Miss before I came to UNLV. Eustace was the coach at Southern Miss. I've seen him coach a long time. He's a hell of a coach. little bit of a nut job, but a hell of a coach.
Emphasis on nut job.
Yeah, so I had him going 13-5 in conference. Here's the biggest factor in anything to me is the month of December for UNLV. And it actually starts at the end of November with Albany. They get 8 of 9 games at home from the end of November to the end of December, including pretty much the beginning of December all the way to December 31st at Wyoming. They're at home. For Arizona, I mean, they're at home after the Arizona State game to St. Catharines, South Dakota, Portland. Oh no, I'm sorry. They go to South Dakota. Sorry,
yeah,
but they got Portland, Utah, Arizona, Southern Utah. They're all home games. So I think the month of December, and I know they play at MGM for the Utah game, but that's still a home game.
Yeah.
I think that is the biggest key for. That threw me off on the schedule because it says versus South Dakota,
Yeah.
which usually is a home game.
I want to know how much money South Dakota's getting for this game.
Yeah.
Who schedules South Dakota? Anyway.
But I think that's a very, very key streak for the Rebels. Like I said, 22-9, 13-5 in conference. The only top team I can really see them beating is Arizona State. I don't think they can beat Kansas. I don't think they can beat Arizona. I don't think they can beat Utah. No way in Stanford. Definitely not Duke.
Yeah.
But Dave Rice teams notoriously play up to competition. I mean, you rarely see them getting blown out by top tier teams. They didn't get blown out by Arizona State last year. They didn't get blown out by Arizona in Arizona. They don't usually get blown out. So I think it'll be close games, but I don't see them winning any of those games except Arizona State. So 22-9, 13-5 in conference. I think they do enough to get an at-large bid in the tournament this year in the NCAA without winning the Mountain West.
Okay. I'm with you guys around that ballpark. I'm going to say around 22, 23 wins. I think that's very reasonable. I also think they're probably going to get a top 3 seed in the conference tournament.
I think it'll come down to Wyoming and UNLV for the number 3 seed. 'Cause
Yeah.
I think San Diego State and Boise State are really good teams.
That conference, though, we shouldn't overlook that. That conference is deep. I mean,
And they can slip up to
Fresno
Fresno.
State.
I was going to say they can slip to Fresno. They can slip up to Reno. They can slip to any team.
And Fresno State, I think what was it, the CIT last year? They got really far in the CIT.
Yeah,
whatever term it was.
CBI, right?
The CBI, yeah. Fresno State is on the come up. They look really good, and they surprised a lot of people last year. Wyoming, as you guys said, Larry Nance Jr. coming back. We'll see if he's fully recovered from that torn ACL. I hope he is, because he's a really exciting player. I love watching him play. And then you have the likes of New Mexico, kind of iffy on them because they lost everybody. San Diego State, obviously, what they're getting from them. Boise State, a lot of sleepers on this team. This conference is ridiculously deep. But I think 22-23 wins is reasonable. I think they get a top 3 seed in the conference tournament. They get knocked out of the semifinals, and they'll get about a 7 or 8 seed in the NCAA tournament.
Which is what they always get. They're always 6, 7, 8, or 9. It's like they can't be any other seed. It's
Well,
weird.
they were 5 when they lost to Cal.
That's right.
Yes,
That's right. Yeah, I don't know. It's gonna be interesting. I tell you what, Stanford did not look that good in their exhibition against Cal Poly Pomona. They beat them by 3 points, but Chase and Randall went off. Anthony Brown went off. That'll be a huge test for Jelon Kendrick, and maybe see some Dwayne Morgan on Chase and Randall. But Jelon Kendrick's gonna have to be key because Randall's a big 6'6", 6'7" guard that can just ball.
Mhm.
So.
All right. Well, season opener again for UNLV, for the Running Rebels at least, is at 7:30 at the Thomas and Mack Center
Tomorrow
night against Morehead State. But before that, the Lady Rebels tip off a new series. Too many football analogies. But Lady Rebels tip off their new season before the Running Rebels get started against Texas A&M Corpus Christi at 4 o'clock at the Thomas and Mack Center. Very big year for Kathy Olivier and her Lady Rebels. This is a team that was projected to finish 6th in the Mountain West this year. Not a lot of people are taking them seriously. They have talent. I mean, they have talent across this team. It's just a matter of putting it together. I was at the game against Dixie State on Monday, the exhibition game at the Cox Pavilion, where UNLV won 100-67, so about the same score as the men's game against Florida National. And I thought I'd never seen a team throw up more YOLO shots in my life than Dixie State, but for the love of God, they were throwing up. This game was tied at 20-20 halfway through the first half, and then UNLV ended the half on a 31-5 run. So, I mean, this team is very talented. Again, a big year for Kathy Olivier and the Lady Rebels. Again, projected to finish 6th this year. I know you guys probably don't have as much thought on the Lady Rebels, considering you all didn't see them as much as I have over the last couple of years, but kind of based off last year. First thoughts, what do you guys think about this team this year?
I think I watched them a little bit last year, not too much, but I watched them a little bit. I think with the departure of Rajon Varen, Ali Rhodey's role is even bigger now.
Mm-hmm.
I think she needs to dominate the way that she should. She's like, what, 6'2", 6'3"?
Around there, yeah.
Yeah, she's a big girl. She has a lot of size. She has soft hands. She can handle the ball well. So I think she's going to be instrumental. But I think the biggest piece is going to be Dani Miller and Elena Cesars.
Yes.
The Cesars especially, she can stroke it. She can shoot. And when she gets hot, it's something to see because she really can play ball. So I'm anxious to see those three, the Trinity, if you will, with Dani Miller, Elena Cesar, and Ali Rhodey. I want to see how them three play together, how they play throughout the season, because those are the leaders on this team right now, and it's going to be interesting to watch them play. They were all really efficient in the game against whoever they played. Yeah, Dixie State.
Yeah.
But that's not indicative of how they're going to play this season because that's far less competition than what they'll be facing this year. So we'll see. But I liked what I saw.
Yeah, we talked about it last year. I think you brought it up with Coach Olivier, and maybe is her time coming to an end. So like you said, I think it's a big year for her. That 22-win season seems like it was a decade ago.
Yeah, it was. She had a lot of senior leadership on that team.
So, no, we'll see. I was looking at the stats from the other night. They missed a lot of free throws, huh?
Oh, my good Lord.
4 of 16 from the field.
From three-point range. They got
from
45 times and made 26 of them.
I was looking at the wrong thing. That was the three-point line.
Yeah. So, I mean, that is one thing Kathy mentioned on Monday that they're going to have to clean up. Also, the 23 turnovers, you don't want that. But, I mean, if you can win the turnover battle and have 23 turnovers, I think that says a lot. Yeah. But, no, I completely agree with you. Kathy has 2 years left in her contract, I think, including this year and next year. So this is a big year. But I agree with you, Randy. It comes down to those three between Danielle Miller, Ali Rhodey, and Elena Cesars. And Elena, she had that knee injury a couple of years ago, sidelined her for the rest of the year. So she came back last year, had a very great year, and this year she's projected to be one of the top players in the Mountain West. The law's on her. But I think the X factor this year, as Danielle Miller goes, this season goes. And I talked with her after the game on Monday about her jump shot. And her jump shot's been inconsistent the last couple of years.
To say the least.
And I mean, she's gotten a lot of good looks, but she hasn't been consistent. I talked to her on Monday, and I saw it. She looks more confident in her jump shot than I think she has ever thought. And she said the same thing. She completely agreed. UNLV's kind of running a more up-tempo, fast-paced offense, kind of like what UNLV's trying to do, like the Running Rebels are trying to do.
Right.
But they're more aggressive on defense, playing more aggressive zone. They're playing more up-tempo. They're taking another thing is they're taking advantage of the turnovers. They're taking advantage. Points off turnovers was a huge thing last year. They're taking advantage of it this year. So I think you put all those things together, you can make it a consistent group. This can be a team that's a lot better than 6 in the Mountain West. Because the Mountain West is like Fresno State and then a big drop-off, I think, when it comes to women's basketball.
Colorado State's good, too. They're big. They have a lot of size. When I watched the game last year, they were very, 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 very physical and a lot bigger than UNLV.
Yes.
The Lady Rebels.
Our teams are being the opposite side of the world from each other in 2 weeks. The men's are going to be in Brooklyn, and the women's are going to be in Hawaii.
Yeah, they're playing.
Wow.
They're making a trip to Hawaii the same weekend. I believe the football team is in Hawaii, and they're playing Missouri and at Hawaii. Technically.
Well, hopefully that bad mojo doesn't rub off on the women's basketball.
No, it's not. And I mean, another thing when you're looking at this schedule is a lot of games are at home, and kind of in years past, last couple of years, Kathy kind of got away from that. She kind of backed away from scheduling a lot of home games. She wanted to get her team out on the road, kind of get the road mojo out, or whatever the case may be. But they lost a lot of close games last year, on the road especially. This year you get a lot of home games. I think you got the one stretch here in Utah when you're at BYU, at Utah, and at Southern Utah. That's probably your biggest road stretch up until conference season. That's the only really tough road stretch you need to worry about with this team. So,
yeah, I think Dani Miller's key. Like you said, she had a good game against Dixie State, shot over 60% from the field. I think another person that's interesting that didn't play a lot last year, didn't play very well last year at all, is Jahia Cook. Like you were saying, she started.
She is the key.
She started in the Dixie State game. She has a lot of talent. You can tell she's very athletic. And she's not scared. She's physical. So I think she'll be pretty interesting to watch this year too.
Yeah, that's another thing.
And as a team, they had 16 assists in the game in a 40-minute game.
Yeah,
that's pretty decent.
That is pretty decent, but that's another thing that I kind of wanted to touch up on, and I've been kind of talking with Kathy about this for the last couple of weeks. Went to a couple practices, kind of seeing what's going on.
23 turnovers, 16 assists.
Yeah, that's one thing. This point guard situation is going to be interesting because, yeah, the last 4 years of Mia Bell, now she's on the sideline with Kathy as an assistant coach. You put Jahia Cook in there, who has not started a game in 2 years since she's been here, and kind of throw her into the fire and say, here's a starting point guard role, take the keys and roll with it. I think right now it's her job to lose because there's another player on this team, Brooke Johnson, a freshman. And Kathy has spoken really high about her. She said she can play the 1, she can play the 2, she can play the 3.
She started, right?
She started at the 2.
Mm-hmm.
She had 8 points and 8 boards. 8 points and 8 boards. I mean, I know it's Dixie State, and Dixie State had no idea what they were doing for about 35 minutes of that game. But Brooke Johnson is pretty much everything that has been advertised. She looks really good, and she played pretty much the same offense in high school that she's playing now. So she's very comfortable with this offense, and she looked really good. I think if Jahia does not play well, probably within the first month or so, you could see possibly Brooke Johnson moving over to the starting point guard spot, moving Daniel Miller to the 2, Elena Cesar to the 3, and then putting Amy Calloway back in power forward.
Yeah, Amy Calloway is a big body. She's strong and physical. She had like a double-double almost against Dixie.
She had 11 rebounds off the bench.
Yeah.
She led the team on Monday in rebounds off the bench.
She'll be good in games where they're going to be undersized and undermanned.
Mm-hmm.
Undermanned.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She's big and physical, and she's not afraid of contact. In the game I watched her last year, she was the only one that was really going toe-to-toe with any of the Colorado State players. So because of her size, because of her physicality. So I think that'd be a good. Jahia Cook's a good player, but if push comes to shove, I think that'd be a decent starting lineup.
I think you kind of like to go with that big lineup.
Yeah.
Having Brooke at 5'11" be your point guard who can handle the ball and has great vision. I mean, she didn't have many assists. I don't think she had 8 assists.
She's a freshman from
California.
California. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. She was recruited highly.
Yeah, Kathy spoke very highly of her. Another person that Kathy's been very high on is Jasmine Barty, who could see some minutes being the backup to Ali Rhodey at center. I mean, there are a lot of pieces of this team that can contribute in a lot of ways. I think this is the first time in a while Lady Rebels have had depth and they can actually use it, which I think is going to say a lot because you got Brianna Charles coming off the bench as the 6th woman. I mean, a lot of potential pieces with this team. And, I mean, you look at the schedule here, and like we talked about before, a lot of home games. Lady Rebel Roundup is always the big thing after Thanksgiving. And then that 3-game stretch in the state of Utah. But, I mean, other than that, I mean, it's pretty much just win your games and then get ready for conference play because it's going to be a pretty tough conference this year, I think, when you're talking about women's basketball. You got Fresno State. There's a gap, but I think the way that gap is, you can put any team at 2 through 6 and pretty much have a very tough conference in the Mountain West this year. So I'll give my prediction first on this season because I think when you look at this team, very talented across the board. I think 1 through 5, 1 being the big question, 1 being a slight question mark right now, but I think Jahia Cook will improve as time goes on as more as Kathy trusts her with the offense. They got to cut down on the turnovers. That was the one big problem last year. They got to cut down on the turnovers. And they also need to do a lot better on the rebounding battle. And that's one thing they were kind of angry about on Monday. They won the rebounding battle 58-39 and still felt like they could have won it even more. That is insane. That is unheard of. So they got to win the rebounding battle, which they can. They have the size to do it. They lost the rebounding battle. I think I mentioned this a couple times before. They lost the rebounding battle 12 times in games where they lost by 10 or less points. If they win the rebounding battle, they're more than likely going to win games this year. So if you can utilize your front court to the best of your abilities, you're going to win more than 13 games like they have the last 2 years. I see this being an 18 to 19 win team this year, possibly top 4 or 5 seed in the Mountain West. I believe they were the 6th seed last year, and they got through the play-in game before they lost to Fresno State. But the year before, they were the 4 seed. I kind of see that again this year, and I think UNLV will actually win another conference tournament game. They get on to the next round, but then it's kind of iffy. So I think 18, 19 wins is very reasonable for this team. Maybe 20. If they can dominate in the front court, this team can win 20 more games. I really feel that.
Yeah, I'm going to go a little south of you once again.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go. I'm going to go about 17 and 14, 3 games over 500. But I think conference they'll actually be pretty okay.
They were 9-9 last year.
Yeah, I would say maybe a little bit of a step up. I'll go 11 and 7, possibly getting into the semifinal, but losing there.
Yeah, that'd be a huge step if they get to the semifinal.
Yeah,
That'd be huge.
well, I think with 11 and 7, they'll actually have a decent shot of making a top 3 or 4 seed. So, because I think it's going to be a tough conference personally.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
I'll agree with Danny. I think if they win a game in the conference tournament, that could be a big step for them. Like he said, if they make the semifinals, that'd be big. But I think getting into that conference tournament, ending the year right, and then getting in with some momentum, hopefully winning a game in that conference tournament could be big for them. So
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it all comes down to the rebound battle. You win the battle on the boards, which UNLV did not do a lot of last year. They can win more games. They know that rebounding is a mission this year, and everybody can rebound on that team pretty much. You can get players on that team that can average at least 5 rebounds a game, but they need to do a lot better on the glass. And I think Allie Rhodey could probably be close to a double-double this year if she stays healthy. That's my thing.
she should. She got the size
She should.
and the skill.
All right, that should do it.
Can't wait.
Good stuff, guys. Basketball season begins tomorrow, and a huge day of basketball. Thomas and Mack, 4 o'clock. Lady Rebels take on Texas A&M Corpus Christi, and then the Runner Rebels follow that up with a game against Morehead State. Please go to both games.
Yeah, great atmosphere.
Please go to both games. And please do not be coming into this. I was there last year. Do not be coming in late in the second half, setting up the fatheads while the Lady Rebels are still playing a game. For the love of God, all right.
Come on, Rebellion.
That annoyed the living hell out of me.
And Rochelle too. She hated
Oh
it.
yeah, she hated it, and I definitely feel her pain.
Yeah.
But that's going to do it for us, guys. Thanks for watching us, and hope you enjoyed our 2014-15 UNLV basketball season preview. We'll be back next week to break down those first set of games and kind of get a bigger feel of where this team is. And I think we'll have Jesse's prediction next week as well. So, because again, his work sucks. So we'll see you guys next week. For Randy and Jordan, I'm Danny. We'll see you guys next time.